Welcome back, Go Gunners family. Arsenal lead 5 English sides straight into Champions League last 16, with Newcastle still battling. Liverpool and Arne Slot enjoyed some respite and relief. Arsenal fans got a glimpse of what the Kai Havertz-Victor Gyökeres axis can offer. Jeremy Doku is evolving into Kevin De Bruyne, and the whole of Europe should be utterly ashamed of Tottenham finishing 4th. They're all safely through to the last 16 after finishing in the automatic qualification spots. Chelsea are also in as Cole Palmer returned just in time for Liam Rosenier, but Newcastle will face either Monaco or Karabag in the playoffs after a credible but ultimately costly draw with PSG. A very welcome, comfortable night in an uncomfortable season for Arne Slot and Liverpool, who did the necessary to secure a top 4 finish by dismantling Karabag with minimal fuss and a good deal of elan. Securing a 3rd-place finish is significant too, meaning Liverpool will have home advantage of the second leg in both the last 16 and, should they get through, the quarterfinal. Slot will hope for a bit more luck of the draw after being lumbered with PSG in the last 16, despite topping the table a year ago. This was a night of respite and relief for Liverpool in general, and for some specific players too. Alexis McAllister scored 2, with welcome goals for Florian Wirtz and Mo Salah along the way, as well as another for Hugo Ekitike, who is perhaps less in need of a spirit lift, ending with a rare opportunity for Liverpool fans to sing their favorite song, courtesy of a Federica Chiesa cherry on top. Eintracht Frankfurt 0-2 Tottenham. Spurs finish 4th to shame the continent. In scenes that shame the continent, a Tottenham team, dogged by mounting relegation fears in the Premier League, sauntered to a 2-0 win over Eintracht Frankfurt, and with it a 4th-place finish in the Champions League. Like Liverpool, they will be at home in both the last 16 and quarterfinal if they make it through. And Omen fans might like to note that finishing 4th in the table directly below a fellow English team with 17 points from a 5-2-1 record is precisely what they did in last year's Europa League. And we all know how that panned out. After a frustrating first half in which Spurs were the better team, against a Frankfurt side a shadow of the one they beat in the last 8 of last year's Europa, the breakthrough came early in the second half, through Randal Kolo Muani, who apparently, and unhelpfully, is only going to score for Spurs against his current or former employers. Might not seem a particularly useful trick, but worth noting that Juventus are among Spurs' 4 potential last 16 opponents. Dominic Solanke made the point safe, while Real Madrid's defeat at Jose Mourinho's Benfica, for whom goalkeeper Anatoly Trubin scored a 98th-minute goal to seal a 4-2 victory and nick the final playoff spot off Marseille, means Spurs jump to 4th in the final standings. The 14th best team in England, ending the league phase of the Champions League above your Barcelonas, your Real Madrids, and the Paris Saint-Germains of this world. In the last 3 months, Spurs have won twice as many Champions League games, 4, as Premier League ones, 2. We need a word for it. Fire emojis abound on social media upon the advent of Kai Havertz x Victor Gyökeres, which arrived after just 2 minutes of football together, with the worth of Havertz compared to Martin Odegaard pointed out just as eagerly by Goners, as the German opened up his body with one touch in the number 10 position and slipped his teammate in with the next. Decent finish by Gyökeres too, as he recovered from getting the ball stuck under his feet to fire into the bottom corner. Havertz added to the "oh, this is what we've been missing" narrative by scoring brilliantly a few minutes later as he cut in past a couple of defenders from the right before curling his shot into the corner. Gabriel Martinelli scored a 3rd for Arsenal, as Gyökeres also got himself an assist, and while allowing FC Kairat to score 2 goals at the Emirates is of course shameful, the recrimination should be limited at the end of a Champions League group phase which has ended with Mikel Arteta's side top of the table with 8 wins from 8 games. Manchester City 2-0 Galatasaray. Jeremy Doku evolving into Kevin De Bruyne. Jeremy Doku's evolution from head-down speedster to high IQ creator continued apace at the Etihad, as Manchester City cruised through to the last 16 with a 2-0 win over Galatasaray. The second assist was what you might expect of Doku, as he received the ball on the left, unsettled the defender with a couple of body jitters, cut back, passed to Ryan Cherki for him to finish low in the bottom corner. Even that would have been something of a surprise a year or so ago, when the final ball tended to be a cause of huge frustration. Now it's a genuine plus point in his game, as illustrated comprehensively by his first assist. Kevin De Bruyne would have been proud of the pass played one side of the defender from the center circle, as Erling Haaland stormed past the other shoulder to latch onto the ball before dinking the onrushing goalkeeper. Possible next opponents for England's 6 Champions League knockout stage qualifiers. As with last year, the draw for the playoff and knockout rounds for the European competitions will be bracketed and partially seeded based on finishing positions. The 8 automatic qualifiers for the last 16 are paired with the team next to them in the table and will automatically be placed on opposite sides of the draw. This means, for instance, that, as with Spurs and Man United in last year's Europa League, it is impossible for Liverpool and Spurs to meet before the final, after they finish 3rd and 4th to be paired together. Chelsea, 6th, are paired with 5th-place Barcelona, table-toppers Arsenal with 2nd-place Bayern Munich, and Manchester City, who claimed the 8th and last automatic spot after falling in the playoffs last year, paired with Sporting after their 7th-place finish. Each of those pairs then has 2 pairs of potential opponents from the playoff rounds, again based on finishing positions. Those possible opponents are as follows. Arsenal possible Champions League last 16 opponents: Borussia Dortmund, Olympiacos, Atalanta, Bayer Leverkusen. Liverpool possible Champions League last 16 opponents: Club Brugge, Galatasaray, Juventus, Athletic Madrid. Tottenham possible Champions League last 16 opponents: Club Brugge, Galatasaray, Juventus, Athletic Madrid. Chelsea possible Champions League last 16 opponents: Karabag, Monaco, Newcastle, PSG. Manchester City possible Champions League last 16 opponents: Bodo Glimt, Benfica, Real Madrid, Inter Milan. Things are slightly different for Newcastle, the only English team forced down the playoff route. We can narrow their possible opponents in that to 2, based on seeding pairs, with 2 possible last 16 opponents should they make it through. Newcastle possible Champions League playoff opponents: Karabag, Monaco. Newcastle possible Champions League last 16 opponents: Chelsea, Barcelona. For both Chelsea and Newcastle, there also therefore exists the highly unusual possibility of playing a fellow English team in every knockout round. They could face each other in the last 16 should Newcastle make it, then either Liverpool or Tottenham in the quarterfinal, and then Arsenal and Manchester City in either order in the semi-final and final, if those two have themselves landed on opposite sides of the draw. Arsenal versus Manchester City is a potential quarterfinal if they end up on the same side of the draw as each other. The draw for the playoff round takes place in Lyon on Friday, with the final draw to set the complete knockout bracket for the last 16 onwards taking place on February 27. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment.